writers, you're listening to the Kobo ReWriting Life Podcast, where we highlight an episode from our backlist that will bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. I'm your host, Tara Kremen, Director of Kobo Writing Life. We're launching this new podcast series with an interview from February 2020 with USA Today bestselling author Darcy Burke. The reason I picked this episode is because Darcy talks about writing retreats, and as 2025 is kicking off, I thought it'd be a good reminder to take the time to connect with other writers and hopefully inspire you to think about adding a fun writing retreat to your plans this year.
So this week we were talking to Darcy Burke, and Darcy Burke is the US Today bestselling author of sexy, emotional, historical, and contemporary romance books. And Tara has a fun fact.
Oh yeah, so Darcy goes to a lot, well, she's going to talk about writing conferences in this interview, and I've met her at a bunch of conferences, but like little fun fact, I met her at Romantic Times RT in Reno, which actually turned out to be the last RT, so I was very happy that I got to go there. And Darcy, being a good old pal, snuck me into a photo shoot with some topless cover models.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is there a shower involved? Or
yeah, we got kicked out before the shower. Yeah.
It was too steamy?
No, you got your messages there.
Whoops.
The cover models were too shy. They didn't want us looking.
That's the sweetest thing I've heard. Well, that's great. Yeah, so Darcy talked to us a bit about writing retreats, which I've always been interested in as being a non-writer. They seem like fun.
I know, it's like a holiday, but you're still working, but you're relaxed and also working.
And you're with your friends.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to balance the working part. I just want to hang out with my mates.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, writing retreats, we learned about how she refreshes her old backlist titles and a little bit about how she got her start in the indie world. So
yeah, Darcy's great. She's also a jewel of historical romance. So she's one of the 12.
She's got a lot of info to give us. So please keep listening. So thank you, Darcy, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And so just before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am Darcy Burke, and I live in Oregon, and I write historical and contemporary romance. My historical romance is set in the UK, in England mostly, but also in Wales. And trying to think of everything in Scotland, but we're moving to Scotland. And not me personally moving to Scotland, but characters moving into Scotland in 2020. How's that?
I love the we. You're just included. Right, a happy family.
Me and my characters are like a thing, and they're real. And set during the Regency. And then I have contemporary novels that are set here in Oregon wine country. It doesn't necessarily mean they're books about wineries. One trilogy is, but actually the main series is a family saga, and they own brew pubs. So they're actually beer makers, not winemakers, which I thought was kind of funny because it's wine country, but they make beer. Oregon's really known for beer too. So that's important, I guess, which is funny because I've been a wine lover much longer than I was a beer lover. I've only started to like beer in the last few years. My husband has always loved beer, and he's super excited that now I like beer. I like dark beer. And now he has a gluten intolerance, so he can't really drink beer. Sad trombone.
Oh, so you just switched places.
There, yes. So, yes, I live and work here, and I had my assistant was just here, Banana Cat, and I have 3 other cats and 2 kids, and it is a lovely chaos.
Oh, that sounds very nice and chaotic. We want to learn a little bit more about your writing career. So were you traditionally published first, or did you always self-publish yourself?
No, I was self-published first. So I was writing just historical romance. That's my first love, and that's what I was writing. And then the self-publishing boom sort of took off, and I've been agented since 2008. I think I was a finalist in the Romance Writers of America Golden Heart Contest, which was a contest for unpublished authors. I say was because last year was the last year. It's a little sad as times change. So I was a Golden Heart finalist with a historical novel, and sort of had the misfortune to be trying to break out into traditional publishing when the Great Recession hit, which I literally went on submission to New York with my first book that I published independently, Her Wicked Ways, the week the market crashed in September of 2008. So that was super fun didn't really work out so well. So I decided to take advantage of independent publishing when a couple of friends of mine, notably Courtney Milan, who's a good friend of mine, she was like, Darcy, you should try this. You have like 3 books that are done and that they're a great series. And so I said, okay. And so she held my hand a little bit. And in 2012, that's what I did. And then about a year and a half later, I do a writing retreat every year with some women that finaled in the Golden Heart contest together. We just became really good friends, and we still retreat to this day every year. And that particular year, we were up in Seattle, in the Seattle area. It was January. We'd had like a gas leak or a gas smell in the main house, and I was staying in the guest house. It was me and 2 other authors, Rachel Grant and Courtney Milan. It was really cold because they turned the gas off to that house, and so we had no heat that night. And here we are in January, dead of winter. It's freezing. I don't think I've ever been so cold in my life, and that includes camping on a mountain in the cold. I came up with this idea for a contemporary series, and it was just fully formed. Like I was going to write these sex couplets, and one of them died, and there's a 7th kid, and anyway, the whole thing just was there because that's what one does when you're cold and you can't sleep. And so I'd never really thought about writing outside of the historical genre, but that's what I did. And so I wrote sort of a prequel, like Christmas time novella for that series. And then my agent sold the series to Avon. So I was independently published and then traditionally published. And now I'm currently just independently published. But I loved working with Avon specifically. I loved my editor, and not to say I wouldn't do that again.
Sounds great. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference now, do you think, between self-publishing and traditionally?
I don't know that I have a preference. There are pros and cons to both. I really liked working with my editor. We just got on really well, and she taught me a lot and really helped me as a writer. I think that I'm a much more successful independent author now because of that experience. I don't know, some of the things that I love so much about independent publishing, Avon was really great about, they would really let me have input on covers, and the titles were all mine. Except the last book, I couldn't come up with the title, and they came up with it, and it was fine, and I was totally happy with it. So that was great. So it's nice to have, when you get to those moments where your brain is dead and you have nothing else, to have collaborators to help you with that is nice. And that's what I have a lot of indie author friends that do that for me, and I do that for them. So it's hard to say if I have a preference. There's pros and cons to both, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess that's why the indie community is such a tight-knit one. That's just dawned on me as you're talking, that it is having one another to rely on, because you don't really have the support of the bigger kind of publishing entity,
Yes. There's a lot of different groups that have formed. So some of us are just historical authors, and so we promote together or whatever. And then, you form friendships with people, and you end up sort of working together on maybe goals and planning, or, basic stuff like what's working at this vendor, or what kind of promotion's working for you, what's the best way to run an ARC team, all that sort of thing. And I think when you're independently published, it really forces you to think about everything, because even when you're traditionally published, there's a lot you still have to do marketing wise. And I think that's been true for even before the independent publishing boom. And so as an indie author, I feel like I've learned to do that really well, to balance that, because it would be nice to just be a writer all the time and just be that part of my brain. But working in indie has forced me to use the other part of my brain. And I really like packaging books and series and branding and figuring out like how to launch something and that kind of stuff. I really enjoy.
How did you find your indie author tribe, I want to say?
Several ways. So once upon a time, way back when, I joined this Yahoo writing loop. And I met a few people.
I'm definitely imagining you with a plug-in internet cord.
I don't think I've used it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, making fun of Yahoo, not you.
Yeah.
And so I met a group of people that way, and one of them is still writing, and it's one of my best friends. That's Erica Ridley, and so we've been friends forever. back before we were just baby writers. And then when I finaled in the Golden Heart, that was a huge, not just a networking opportunity, but just it really bonded you together. I mean, in those days, right when they would announce the Golden Heart finalists in March, you would form a Yahoo loop of your group and you would come up with a name. We were the Pixie Chicks because at the time people were getting agents and getting deals and going out on submissions. So we were always sprinkling pixie dust. I don't really know where that came from. And so we became the Pixie Chicks. And so everybody has all the different Golden Heart groups have names. It's just kind of cute. So a bunch of those ladies I've become very close friends with, and I still talk to pretty much on a daily basis, like Rachel Grant, for instance. And we don't even write in the same genre, but it doesn't matter. We share all sorts of information and are just supportive. And we're good personal friends now too, right? I liken it to, when you work in a job, like you guys are probably, friendly outside of work in addition to being, coworkers, because gosh, you spend so much time with
Steph
people.
and I actually really dislike each
Yeah, and I was like, I hate your face.
No.
I've exposed a terrible secret at Kobo. Toxic work environment.
Yeah.
You were only my boss,
I know, No, I totally get what you mean. I feel like, especially like when I moved to Canada as an Irish person that didn't really know anyone here, and then you get to work at Kobo, and you're like, oh, these people like all like books like I do. Like it's just automatic friends.
Yeah.
I think it's really important as writers. We have to sometimes go out of our way to do that because we don't. My coworker is Banana Cat, and sometimes she's not really helpful when I need to bounce an idea off of someone. And so if you don't form those connections, you don't really have like coworkers. And I guess some people can work like that, but I cannot. I need to be able to say, hey, read this for me, or is this stupid? Or like I have an idea for a story I want to write this year, but it has a little bit of a sad aspect to it, and I need to make sure that it's not like too sad or whatever. And so I'll bounce that off a couple of writer pals and see what they think.
Nice. Sounds like you have a really good, solid tribe, to steal Steph's word.
I do. Yeah. In fact, one of them. So I went to a retreat. These writing retreats are great. You meet all sorts of people. A good friend and I, who lives here in Oregon, she's an author. We went to a retreat where I didn't really know anybody. I knew a couple of people. And we met this other couple of gals who were like BFFs from forever ago. And so the four of us like became really close. And one of them just sent us all these little mugs, and it's us sitting on a pier and it's our backs. And she got our hair perfect. Like everybody's hair exactly the way it should from the back. And it's just the sweetest thing.
Oh, that's really cute.
So are writer retreats open to anyone?
It depends. This one I'm talking about in particular, usually it's somebody who says, okay, I want to get some people together and do a retreat. And so like this one was an author who just rented a big house. There was room for like 12. She booked a caterer so we didn't have to cook.
Wow.
And then it was like, okay, it's this much money. And then they invite their group of people, their tribe. And if they have more space, maybe people in their tribe have other people in their tribe and they invite them, right? I mean, it's sort of like a word of mouth thing. And it also depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, if it's a writing retreat where everybody's like head down writing, but you get together at meals and stuff, that's one thing. Or like I went to a retreat a couple of weeks ago that was more like everybody shared ideas, and we had a list of topics that we wanted to discuss over the couple of days. And then we would take notes, and people who had something to say about that could talk, and people that had questions, and it was all very informative, and we weren't writing. So there's, it just sort of depends on what the focus is.
Mm-hmm.
So
that makes sense.
I think that somebody could probably have a pretty darn good business planning and executing writing retreats for people.
Yeah, Steph, side hustle.
Maybe that should be my side job. Yeah.
There you go. Let me know if you do.
Oh yeah, I totally will. So I'm sure that you'll probably use social media a lot to interact with your different author friends, like different groups. So do you have a favorite platform?
None of them. No. I don't have a favorite platform, just because I definitely see that social media can be a time suck. Because I mostly am on Facebook because that's where most of my readers are. And I'm also on Instagram. Twitter less so, because I find Twitter it's really easy to go down a rabbit hole that has nothing to do with my job. And so that's not super helpful during the day necessarily. And also Twitter is just by nature somewhat snarky. And I can only do so much of that because I just can only do so much of that. And so on Facebook, a lot of these things I'm talking about with your writing career, like collaborating with people and sharing ideas and information and just learning and keeping up to speed on the changing industry. There's so many Facebook groups that cover all these different things that I like to check in with on a regular basis. And then probably actually my favorite place to go is I have a writer group. Actually, I have 2 writer groups, one for each of my genres. I have Darcy's Duchesses for my historical readers, and then Burke's Book Lovers for my contemporary readers. And I love going there because they're my super fans basically. And we like to talk about my books, but also what's going on. We celebrate birthdays. I do a Facebook Live every couple weeks in there. I just did one last night, and I answer questions and I let people know what I'm working on and what's coming up. And Banana Cat usually tries to steal the spotlight, so that's fun. She was really funny. For a long time, when I first started doing that, she was always like in the frame, like, oh, everybody was always like, where's Banana? And then she kind of like took a step back for a while, but now she seems to be kind of inserting herself back in. So I'm not sure what happened there. She got like a little camera shy for a while, but so that's probably my favorite place to go. And then I also have a private group of like my super, super fans who read advanced copies of my book. And that's kind of like where people get like the really inside information. And whenever I share a cover for the first time or a book blurb for the first time or some sort of reveal, I always share it with that group first, and then with my reader groups, and then with everybody else.
Do you find it difficult to balance the contemporary and historical, like having them as separate entities, or do you find that it's just works best for your readers?
It's difficult a little bit because some people cross over and read both, but a lot don't. And I've been writing a lot more in the historical genre than the contemporary genre, surely because I was writing a historical series and it took off. And so I just focused my energy there. And I still love writing contemporary, but I'll admit it's a little harder to stay engaged if I'm not having a book out very often. But we do still try to stay. I say we because I have an assistant who helps me with social media. And so
other than Banana Cat?
Yes, I have an assistant named Jill. She's lovely. It's actually really fun. She's her mom owned my local bookstore where I used to buy all my romance novels in high school.
Oh.
She wasn't the owner then, but she bought it later. And then her mom retired last year. And so Jill was kind of thinking about maybe taking on a job as an author assistant and asked me if I knew anybody that was hiring. And I said, actually. And she had done marketing in her past life and for the bookstore and whatnot. And she lives here locally, so it's great. A lot of authors have virtual assistants that could be anywhere. I love that we can get together and have lunch, and like we're doing holiday cards for my readers this year. And so she ordered them and brought them over to my house last week, and I signed them all, and that was fun. So yeah, Jill is sort of my team when it comes to like the day-to-day and making sure I can write words, and she can help me with some of the heavy lifting. And she's instrumental. Like I don't know. She's made herself, I told her this the other day. I said, you've made yourself quite indispensable. And she said, good, that means I'm doing my job. Yes.
You write with the same name for both different genres. What was the decision behind doing that? Was it just because you bounced between writing one series and another, or was it you're just like, this is my name?
I think it was just like, this is my name. So. And it's, it's a good name. It's a really good name for Regency because my name is Darcy, but, and I was not named after Pride and Prejudice, even though my middle name is Elizabeth.
Whoa.
Luke, I know. My mom just likes the name Darcy. She wasn't a Pride and Prejudice fan either. Although my mom was born in England. So when she was in high school, she was cast as a maid. I think she was very shy, but they really wanted her to be in the play because she still had a British accent at the time, and they were doing Pride and Prejudice. I think that's funny. But I don't think that's where she got the name Darcy. I don't know where she got it. And then Elizabeth is a family name. So it was that, or if I was a boy, my name would have been Lothar von Wolfgang. So
wow, quite the name.
Right. It was my parents had a thing where my mom would name the girls and my dad would name the boys. And they'd already had my brother, and he was named after my dad. And my mom really wanted a girl, and my dad, I think, really wanted a girl. And so he just kind of said, well, if you have a boy, it's going to be Lothar von Wolfgang. So like, all right, it's a girl then.
The universe was listening.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I didn't really have any, and maybe I should have had some more forethought about my name, but I just Darcy Burke is a good name. And it looks good on a cover because each name has 5 letters. So it's balanced and yeah.
Do you approach marketing differently between the two genres, or do you kind of have the same plan for both?
Pretty much the same. It's a little bit different because most of my contemporary catalog is not like I don't control it because they were published by a publisher. And so we just kind of work together. Like we're just recording audio for those books. We just sold the audio rights, which is exciting. And so I want to we're going to be doing some marketing with that series, hopefully next month. It's a great series. And there's, 10 books. So lots for people to read. And if people like small town, but sexy family saga, then that's for them.
Nice.
I do like them.
Yeah. Yeah, can confirm. Readers like it. Yeah. You have a really massive backlist. In your marketing plan, do you have older titles that you promote, or is there a specific focus that you take in kind of when you're planning out your year?
Yes and no, because I haven't necessarily done a great job of it as I've been producing Frontlist. But it's funny you asked this because I was just having a conversation this morning. There was a new Facebook group that arose today about how we do promoting backlist. And this came from a conference that I was at a few weeks ago that I think you were at too. So yeah. Talking about promoting backlist and how best to do that, because it's a little bit of a different animal, right? If you've got a series that's done and how you promote that, because I know for me, I haven't reached all the readers. It's not, it's not tired. It's, and especially when you're writing historicals, those books are evergreen, really. you don't have to worry about updating technology or lingo or anything. They are what they are because it's historical, right? And so I do have some specific ideas in 2020 about how I'm going to market some of my earlier series. And I'm really excited about it because I learned a lot at this. It was a conference I went to called Romance Author Mastermind. And so a bunch of masters of the romance genre sharing best practices. And so there'll be some new content for some of my older series to sort of, point people in that direction and refresh it a little bit. I've rebranded series, like I've put new covers on a couple of series. One I just did a year ago, they'd been out for over 5 years. And so I thought, let's put a fresh stamp on it. And they turned out really great. And then I had another series. I have this series of 4 books called Legendary Rogues. And it's sort of Indiana Jones in the Regency with some King Arthur legend thrown in. It's like a secret society trying to protect all the Arthurian artifacts that are actually real. And then it's very Indiana Jones as far as, the books are, protecting the artifacts, finding the artifacts. It's a little bit of Da Vinci Code thrown in as they do a kind of a treasure hunt. And I love those books. And they're very, because they have more of an action adventure vibe to them. They don't necessarily fit into when they think of a Regency novel, they think of a ballroom. Mm-hmm. And so I have to market that a little bit differently. And so I started with sort of branding it one way, and then I changed it. And I'm still thinking if I've quite hit on the right branding for it, but we'll see.
Do your reader groups help you with kind of deciding what branding to go down, or is that something that you kind of do yourself?
I will work with designers and some marketing folks and my little author tribe. I do sometimes run stuff by my reader group. Which one of these do you like better? And I'll ask them different kinds of questions. Like I was just writing a holiday short story that I'm going to be sending out in my newsletter next week. And so I asked them, which character in the series which couple do you want to hear about? And like, there was an overwhelming winner. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll write about them. So I do love to get their input sometimes. Yeah.
I was just wondering, where do you see the self-publishing industry going in the next couple of years?
Not to ask you a hard question.
Yeah, just
Oh, that's funny. It's hard to say. I think there's sort of like 2 diversions. And there's a certain vendor out there that we won't name that people really tie themselves to, and they're all in or whatever. And that's not me. I see so many opportunities for indie authors in ebook, in audiobook, in translating your books, in just lots of ways of getting, good quality work into readers' hands. And I think that's important. It's really important to me. I, hire professional designers, editors, marketing folks, really try to put out the best product for my readers because, we have a little bit of a contract here, right? I'm going to write you a really great book and you're going to buy them all. And so I think that's important. I think it's going to be important for, at least for me, the way I see my business and how I want to grow is looking at the total picture of how can I deliver books to the most people in the best and easiest ways, and how can I work with, my partners in the industry to do that.
Yeah, I think you really
weird woo-woo answer, but
no, that's great. You really covered. It's we often get questions about why authors should be publishing wide, and these are all the reasons why.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's one of the things I actually credit my agent with a little bit. We talked early on. He was always very supportive of me publishing independently and still is. And, he would just say from go, why would you not want to be wide? No, you have to be wide. It wasn't a question for me, but I think that sometimes people don't understand what that can mean. And it does take more effort, it's what works at one vendor doesn't necessarily work at another vendor. I have fantastic success with box sets at Kobo and I love it. And I love figuring out ways where I can use that to expand. And that's one of the things I want to focus on in 2020 is really trying to figure out, because I think that there's a strength everywhere and it's up to us. If we want to be successful, you have to focus on that strength and make it work.
Nice. That's very good advice.
I have another hard question for you.
Oh,
so what do you think has been the best thing that you've done for your writing business?
The best thing that I've done for my writing business.
Your questions are too hard.
Can't be helped.
Maybe hire Jill, my assistant. I don't know. She's so amazing. But actually, probably the best thing that I have done for my writing business is to really let my passion for writing drive me. I think that a lot of people, you get all sorts of advice in this industry, right? And there's a lot to be said for following your gut. But you also have to temper that with some brain. And that's part of being an entrepreneur, right? Being a successful independent author is knowing what you want to write versus what you should write and finding what meets both those things. And so for me, I made a conscious decision to pursue some ideas that I thought would be really marketable, but that I was really passionate about writing. And that is when I think the magic happens.
Nice. That's when you get your pixie dust.
Yes, that is where it comes from.
So what are you working on next? And what can readers expect from you next? It may or may not be the same thing. Depends.
I don't know what they're expecting from it. No. So I am currently in the middle of writing. It's the continuation of my historical series, The Untouchables, which has 12 books. And then I continue the series with what's called the Spitfire Society. And right now I have 3 books planned. The first book came out in August and the next one will be out in February. So The Untouchables was about these untouchable heroes, right? That were like, the upper echelon of society that these, blue stockings and wallflowers couldn't possibly hope to touch. So that's why they're the Untouchables. And then sort of the next iteration are the Spitfire Society, which are the women who have decided, you know what, I've had it with society and this nonsense, and I don't want to look for a husband. I'm not going to find a husband, and I don't care, and I'm going to be awesome on my own, which is not necessarily what would have happened in large amounts in the Regency, but I am writing for a 21st century audience. Yeah. And it's not that those women didn't exist. And so I thought it would be fun to explore that sort of from that focus, still with untouchable heroes, because, And so that's what I'm writing now. And the next book is called A Duke is Never Enough. and that'll be out in February, and it's a lot of fun. And then I'll write another book that'll be out in June. And then, like I said earlier, I have some content that I'll be doing with some other series with The Untouchables and with my first series, Secrets and Scandals. And then I just did a Christmas trilogy of books. It was a family saga based on like Christmas stories. Like there was A Christmas Carol and The Gift of the Magi and yes, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I managed to make that into a romance novel. That was fun. and that people have really responded to that. So I'll probably do another book or two in that series a year from now for next Christmas. And then I'm trying to decide between two series that I'm going to launch either later in 2020 or at the start of 2021, which seems like a long way off, but in publishing, it's not.
No. Right, you're going to be very busy. Do you have any time for writing retreats next year too?
Yes.
I guess you're writing there, so it is your job.
Well, I'm going to take one for the team and go to Florida next month to meet up with my pal. So, that'll be a real hardship. And then I'll do my annual retreat this spring with my pixies.
Nice.
And then, there'll be plenty of, I think, writing get-togethers. I get to go to Scotland in June for the romance author reader event. I always get that mixed up. It's called Rare, and it's a big book signing in Edinburgh at the end of June, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, awesome. You could get plenty of inspiration from being there directly.
I actually am going to be doing some research there because one of the series that I am researching to write is at least one of the books, if not two, are set in Scotland. So, yay.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else to add? I think we covered everything.
No, I don't think so. This has been super fun. Stephanie, I need to meet you in person. When's that going to happen?
I don't know. They got to send me to some nice locations. I'm looking at you, Tara.
We'll figure something out. Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to let us know if you ever come up to Toronto. But if not, I'll just send Steph to your door.
Yeah.
I really want to come to Toronto. I have never been, and it is on my list of cities that I absolutely have to visit. So, yes.
Oh, well, you can't come without telling us. You have
Of
to
course
tell us
not.
so we can
And
show
it
you
can't
around.
be in the winter.
Wouldn't recommend.
No.
Fair enough.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Darcy. It was great chatting to you.
It was great chatting with you too. Thanks you both so much.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo ReWriting Life podcast. If you're interested in picking up Darcy's books, we'll be sure to include links in our show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're looking for more tips on growing your self-publishing business, you can find us at KoboWritingLife.com. Be sure to follow us on socials. We're at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook and X, and at kobo.writing.life on Instagram and Threads. This episode was hosted by Tara Kremen and Stephanie McGrath, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham, and our theme music is composed by Tearjerker. And thanks to Darcy for being such a great guest. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing!